All right, so today we're going to dive into something pretty important. It really hits home for India's defense personnel, both those serving right now and our veterans.
Oh, absolutely.
And it all revolves around this appeal we've got from the All India Veterans Welfare Association,
Yeah.
the AIVWA,
Right.
dated February 25th, 2025.
Yeah.
But we've also got this other piece of the puzzle, a press release about the Consumer Price Index from the Indian government issued just a couple weeks before on February 12th.
Hmm.
So what we really want to do today is unpack this appeal, figure out what's at its core, and what it means for, the folks who put their lives on the line for the nation's defense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To really grasp this whole thing, you kind of got to understand the Canteen Stores Department.
Yeah.
The CSD. Think of it like a massive chain of stores all across India.
Okay.
And they offer a whole bunch of stuff, grocers, household appliances, all sorts of things to our defense personnel and veterans. But here's the kicker. They get all this at prices that are way below what you'd find on the regular market.
Oh, wow.
It's a major support system, a way to make their lives a little bit easier financially.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So then jumping into what the AIVWA is saying, they lay out this issue in their letter, and it's all about the limits, how much you can actually buy from these CSD canteens.
Right.
Specifically for groceries, and this was interesting, liquor.
Hmm.
They haven't changed these limits in forever, it seems. And they're saying these limits haven't kept up with how much the cost of living has gone up.
Yeah, I see where they're coming from.
So it's basically like they're arguing that the amount of discounted stuff our veterans and people in service can get their hands on, it's just not enough anymore in today's world.
Yeah, it makes sense with prices going up all the time.
And here's the thing. This isn't the first time the AIVWA brought this up.
Oh, really?
In this appeal, they specifically mention an earlier one that they sent back on June 30th, 2024. And what's really striking is how they seem kind of frustrated. The official response to that first appeal was basically like, okay, we've noted your suggestion. We'll think about it.
Oh, wow. So not much action.
Not much action at all. But this time, they're making it crystal clear.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just a suggestion. It's something critical.
Yeah.
They call it a critically essential requirement for the welfare of the people who benefit from this system.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the junior commissioned officers and other ranks.
The JCOs and ORs, right?
Exactly. They're the backbone of the forces, but often they have, more junior pay grades.
Right.
Or they're relying on pensions, which may not have kept up with this inflation.
That's a good point.
So it seems like it's hitting those folks the hardest.
Yeah.
The ones who are already maybe on tighter budgets.
Yeah. It makes you think about how they're managing,
Exactly.
if they were able to comfortably get by before.
Right.
Are they struggling now?
And, it really highlights that the core of their argument is that the purchasing limits have been stuck for so long. Yeah.
While everything else has gotten so much more expensive.
Against this backdrop of just constant inflation.
They say the purchasing limits for groceries haven't been touched in the last 17 years.
Wow, 17 years. That's a long time.
I mean, think about how much has changed in the world and in the economy in 17 years.
It's wild to think about.
To really hammer home this point about inaction, they bring in this data.
Okay.
They're talking about the Consumer Price Index, the CPI.
Yeah.
And they say it's gone up by something like 193.5%.
Whoa.
From 2008 to January 2025. And get this, they're pulling this from the government of India's own figures.
Okay, so this is official data.
It's official stuff. So to break it down, the average cost of everyday things has almost tripled in that time.
Tripled. That's huge.
And for anyone who might not be familiar with this whole CPI thing,
Right.
It's basically like a measuring stick for how prices change over time for a whole basket of goods and services
Okay.
that regular people in cities buy.
So the fact that the government's data shows this massive 193.5% jump in the CPI over 17 years
Yeah.
really just underscores how much and how consistently prices have been going up.
It really puts it into perspective.
And when you connect that crazy rise in the CPI with these unchanged purchasing limits at the CSD,
Oh, yeah.
it's pretty clear how much our defense personnel and veterans are being squeezed.
Yeah.
Their actual buying power has taken a hit.
Right.
Prices have basically tripled, which means that the CSD benefit, it's like a fraction of what it used to be 17 years ago,
Oh, wow.
at least for those essential things.
That's rough.
they're having to fork over way more of their own money just to buy the same basic stuff they used to be able to get within their CSD allowance.
It's like the system is working against them now almost.
And that's exactly what the AIVWA is saying, that this whole thing goes against the very reason the CSD exists in the first place.
Which is?
To give them access to affordable quality goods.
Right.
So if the limits are so low that people still have to go out and buy a bunch of their stuff at regular prices, which are now way higher.
Much higher.
Then the whole point of this welfare measure, it's basically useless.
It's not doing what it's supposed to.
Yeah. Think about it.
Okay.
If someone could fill their shopping cart in 2008 with their CSD allowance,
right,
now they'd need almost 3 times that allowance just to get the same stuff.
It's crazy.
It really puts how much things haven't changed into perspective.
Yeah, totally. It makes you wonder about these kinds of programs in general.
Yeah.
And how effective they really are if they're not reviewed and changed to match how the economy is doing.
Right.
You know what people are actually facing.
Like, are they actually helping, or are they just kind of there in name only?
Exactly.
And it seems like the AIVWA is saying that things are falling short. So they're not just complaining, they're offering a solution, and it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, what do they want to do?
They want to bump up the CSD purchase limits for groceries to at least $15,000 to $20,000 per month.
Okay, so pretty substantial increase.
Yeah. We don't know the exact limits right now, but that range suggests they want a pretty big jump to try and make up for all this lost buying power.
To get back to where they were, essentially.
Yeah, so we've got the AIVWA's argument.
Right.
We've got the problem of the rising cost of living.
Yeah.
Now let's look at what they specifically want to do about it.
I'm curious.
So a big increase right away, that's part one.
Makes sense.
But they're also thinking long term.
Okay.
They want some kind of system in place to reassess these purchase limits every so often.
Oh, that's smart.
The idea is to make sure they're always in line with whatever's happening with inflation.
So it doesn't happen again.
So it doesn't all go out of whack again years down the line.
Yeah, so they're really trying to make sure this is a permanent solution.
Yeah, they seem pretty committed to making sure the defense community's financial well-being is taken care of for the long haul.
You can really sense the urgency and the importance they're putting on this.
Oh, absolutely. They keep using phrases like pressing issue, urgent intervention.
They don't want any more delays.
They really don't. And remember, this isn't new for them.
Right. They mentioned that earlier appeal.
This has been going on since at least June of last year.
So they've been pushing for this for a while.
It shows how important this is to them.
I wonder if they're feeling a little bit ignored at this point.
Yeah, you can kind of feel that frustration in their words.
They're like they've raised this before and haven't really gotten a good response.
And it's made them even more determined to get it addressed.
You've got to think about who they're sending this appeal to, too.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
It's addressed to the Quartermaster General at the Canteen Services Directorate.
Okay.
And the Joint Secretary of the Department of Ex-Servicemen Welfare.
So the people who can actually make changes happen.
Exactly. Those are the folks with the power to actually change the CSD policies.
It's interesting they also sent copies to a bunch of other people and groups.
Oh, like a...
The Directorate of Indian Army Veterans.
Okay.
The Managing Director of the CSD itself. And even the Defense Minister.
Oh, wow. They're really covering all their bases.
I think they're trying to get this issue on everyone's radar.
Yeah, it's like a strategic move.
Make sure it's not just swept under the rug.
Get everyone talking about it.
Especially those who can really influence change.
It seems like they're trying to hit both the people who run the CSD day to day.
Yeah.
And the higher-ups who make policy decisions.
So for all of you listening, the big takeaway here is this inflation, the rising cost of living.
Right.
It's having a very real impact on the finances of our veterans and service members.
Especially those who rely on the CSD.
Especially those who depend on the CSD to get affordable stuff.
The stuff they need every day.
I mean, we're talking a 200% increase in the CPI since 2008.
Yeah, that's massive.
But the purchasing limits haven't changed at all.
It's pretty clear that something's got to give.
It's not sustainable.
The AIVWA's appeal and all this data they've put forward, they really make a strong case.
Yeah. It makes you think about how we support the people who serve our country.
The CSD was supposed to be this huge help.
A way to take care of them.
Give them access to cheaper goods.
But if they don't keep up with how expensive everything's getting, then it's not really helping anymore.
It's losing its purpose.
So we've covered a lot today.
We have.
The AIVWA's appeal the whole problem of shrinking buying power.
Yeah.
Their ideas for fixing it, both now and in the future.
Right.
And who they're trying to get to take action.
It all comes down to this basic question of taking care of the people who protect our country,
Yeah,
making sure they're able to afford the things they need.
exactly. And that brings us to something I want everyone listening to consider.
Okay.
We've been talking about the CSD and how crucial it is
Yeah.
for the well-being of the people who serve and who have served.
Right.
But what happens when we don't adjust these kinds of support systems?
That's a good question.
When we don't keep up with inflation and the realities of the economy?
What are the real consequences?
It's not just about groceries and liquor.
Yeah.
It's about our commitment to the people who dedicate their lives to keeping us safe.
It really makes you think about what our responsibility is to them
Yeah,
and how we can make sure we're truly supporting them.
that's something we all need to think about.
For sure.
So that's all for today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.